Hey, hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome. If you came to find out why bad boys and girls have better sex, you are definitely in the right place.
We're going to be very bad tonight.
Yeah. So I'm Alicia Davon, for those of you who have never met me before.
I'm Erwan.
So this is a mastery of relationship class. So a bunch of you that are here right now are in our weekly mastery of relationship group coaching class. So hey guys. And then there's a bunch of you who are new and you're our guests, and somebody from Mastery of Relationship invited you, or you found us on Eventbrite or Facebook or Meetup or all those places where you can find cool stuff to do on a Wednesday night. So that's what this is. Now, here is how tonight's going to go. In a moment, we are going to do a 15-ish minute guided meditation. Then we're going to explore why bad boys and girls have better sex, and we're going to really get into it, and we want you to interact, chat in questions, chat in your thoughts and the things that are opening up for you, interact. And then we're going to do a brief exercise in breakout rooms so you all can share and meet each other. And then we're going to come back and we're going to cover some more sexy stuff. We're going to give those of you who are new a free gift. And then we're going to take some questions and some sharing, and we will end at 9 p.m. So we're going to start the meditation in a minute, and I want to tell you what we love, which is seeing your faces. We can see so many of your faces. We've got a big screen right here. So we request that you have your video on the entire night. You will get so much more out of it this way. All right, so I think we're ready.
All right, so we're going to start with something kind of bold, which is the 8 limb. We're going to do a guided meditation, but we're going to do sort of all of yoga, the world of yoga, in 15 minutes. Now, normally we think of yoga as a bunch of postures and exercise, but yoga is much broader than that. In fact, there's 8 different limbs of yoga or sections of yoga. We're going to do them all in 15 minutes, and you're not going to sweat. All right? So the first limb of yoga has to do with others. It has to do with ethics. They call it yama, right? So just take a moment, make sure you're not sort of damaging anybody, doing anything that's like infringing on anybody. You're probably not. You know, you're watching us. That's ethics, right? So yoga starts with ethics. It starts with taking care of the people around us, right? That's the first one. The second one is ourselves. We could call that integrity, right? So take a moment, just get present to yourself. Here you are, you're in a class about romance and sex. Maybe you're new, maybe you've been with us for years, right? But you're putting your attention on yourself, right? That's a good thing to do. It's really taking care of yourself, right? So the second step of yoga is, I'm going to sort of translate it as integrity. Now, the third step of yoga is music, right? No, it's not music. I'm saying that because I want some music. I'm teasing Alicia.
Oh, okay. I thought you wanted me to show the image again.
No.
Okay,
no,
cool.
no.
Well, that's good, so everybody can see our faces and hear music at the same time.
You're going to see us and hear music at the same time. It's going to be amazing.
Yes.
Right? So the third step of yoga is what we're familiar with, which is the posture, the exercises, the body, right? So let's not skimp on this. Take a moment and really pay some attention to your posture. Have your posture be upright as possible, right? Like upright posture, big pigeon chest, open chest, your heart is open, you're right here, right? You're upright, you're alert, you're aware, You're going to learn everything there is possible to learn about why bad boys and girls have better sex tonight, right? Your posture makes a big difference with that. That's a big contribution of yoga, right? So let your posture be really upright, really alert, really aware, sort of ready. Now, also let your posture be relaxed, right? Now, that doesn't mean not aware. It doesn't mean not upright. It doesn't mean slouch, right, like this. It doesn't mean do that. It means let yourself also be relaxed in that upright posture. In fact, sitting in an upright posture for a prolonged period is the best way to be relaxed. It's actually the most comfortable. So there's a natural curve to the lower back, the chest is open. Your lower body is rooted and grounded, sinking into your chair or your couch, or the floor, or your meditation cushion. Now your head, the human head, yoga has, the postural part of yoga addresses this in a very interesting way. Let your head be relaxed. Relax your scalp, relax your neck, relax your eyes, relax your jaw. The body may be working quite intensely, but let your head be relaxed. And this is asana, right? The sitting posture is arguably the most important asana or posture in hatha yoga or physical yoga. And you're practicing that right now, which is a grounded lower body, an erect spine, and a relaxed head. I'm giving you the essence of it. You've taken care of others. Here you are doing something good for yourself that demonstrates an enormous amount of integrity. You're even putting your body into a position it's really going to support you, really going to support your awareness, your health, your relaxation, your growth, your development. Now, the belly is a very important part of the body. In fact, in many traditions, the belly is the center. So put a little attention in the belly. The belly is the center of action, the center of grounding, the center of embodiment. In martial arts, I used to do a lot of judo. There's a lot of focus on the belly. So those are the first three limbs of yoga: yama, niyama, and asana. The fourth limb of yoga is pranayama. So that's where we start to get more subtle. So stay with your posture, stay with your body, and notice your breath. Pranayama, the fourth limb of yoga, has to do with prana, which is energy, life force. And your breath is a good way to access that. So just notice your breath. Notice the movement of your breath. So the breath has movement, it's related to the body. But the breath is kind of a bridge. It's also related to your energy, your mind. So the breath is kind of how we transition inward in yoga. Let yourself transition inward. Now, the next limb of yoga, the fifth, is called pratyahara, which is inward focus. Right? We've attended to others, we've attended to ourselves, we've gotten ourselves in a good posture, we focused on the prana or the energy or the chi or the life force, whatever language you like. And now we're really entering the depths of yoga, pratyahara, inward focus. From here, let your focus go inward, inside, into what's normally invisible. How are you feeling? What are your sensations? What's the shape and state of your mind? You're not changing it. You're not messing with it. You're not meddling with it. But you're just going inward. It's an inward focus. That's the fifth limb of yoga. Really let yourself go inward. In fact, some spiritual traditions, the whole focus is on going inward. So this is a step not to be skipped. And it takes some concentration. And that's the next step of yoga. In Sanskrit, the word is dharana, which means concentration. So we could say concentration, we could say steady, focus, staying the course, not being distracted. And this is arguably the most challenging part of meditation, which is concentration, staying the course, maintaining that inward focus. It's in short supply nowadays. People are very distracted nowadays. But we're inviting you to really maintain your concentration, maintain your inward focus. In which case you can begin the next step of yoga, which is dhyana, or meditation, right? It's taken all of this to actually get to meditation. Meditation is non-doing. Transferring your awareness from mental content into actual direct experience. Just a simple experience of the breath and the stillness of the breath, the stillness of the body, the stillness that surrounds the body, that surrounds the breath. There's no doing in meditation. It's not something that we do. There's something completely and utterly still inside of all experiences. We're not controlling ourselves. Maybe your body hurts, maybe your mind is chattering, it's fine. But you're concentrated inward and maybe even noticing the stillness that's in the inside of all experiences. It's something that you can't grasp. You can't improve upon it. Only reality, only consciousness, only God, whatever language you like. And that you are that. And we're here tonight to have fun. We're here tonight to have fun outside of the box. We don't need to be good. Just get to be as you are, all that you are. And even through Zoom and time and space and all the rest of that, we're right there with you. It's a joy, it's a pleasure to be with you. So slowly let your eyes open, let that happen gently. Let all the colors and visuals and the sound of my voice, let that come to you. You don't have to go out to it, you don't have to harden your head or your eyes or anything like that. Just let it all come to you. You don't have to do anything.
That was awesome. Well, it is really, really great to be with all of you. And in a moment, we are going to dive into the material tonight. And before we do that, I want to give those of you who are new a sense of who we are, and how we got to be teaching this kind of stuff and all of that. So over the last 25 years, over 10,000 singles and couples have come into our courses. And what we support people in is creating amazing love and sex lives, unleashing your relationship potential. You all have that potential to have the most amazing relationship life ever. So people come to us that are single and want to get into a great relationship, and couples come to us that want to, juice their relationships up a little. Maybe it's been a few years or a few decades, and People have psychological issues around relationship and sexual issues, and we cover all of it. Our method, the Davon Method, has 5 parts to it. So Erwan's going to show you a slide so you can read what I'm saying as well as hear me. The first step in the method is bringing consciousness and awareness to those hidden relationship patterns that we all have as human beings. Bringing them to light, they have less control over you, so you're more free. And from there, connecting with your true self, making contact with who you really are, and approaching your relationships from there. And then from there is a lot of fun. We go into unleashing chemistry between the masculine and the feminine, and what I like to call choreography, learning to dance and move through the stages of relationships successfully, and of course, cultivating your sexual potential. Okay, so that is what we do and what we're up to, and you don't have to have a big problem or challenge to come participate with us. You might have one of those, or you might just want more expansion and more fun in your relationship life and your sex life. And, I think we should say something about our backgrounds real quick. Why don't you say a little about your background?
My background was terrible. My background was very rough, very, very challenging. I was born in France. My family immigrated when I was about 2. My parents were already breaking up. They had the nastiest divorce possible once they got into this country. I don't have any memories of them together. They used to sort of drop me off outside on the street. Now, as a child, and I would find my way up to the other parent's house. It was god awful. And it turned out to really, and there was got a gazillion other terrible things after that. I'm going to spare you the details. But all of that forced me to really deal with, how in the world do you have a great relationship? How in the world do you have great sex? How in the world do you have great romance? I wasn't starting from 0. I was starting from -10, right? So it got me into, I was in psychoanalysis multiple days a week at 15 years old. I had, all kinds of issues and stuff. And then I studied psychology and got a graduate degree. And long story short, I end up teaching seminars for the world's largest transformational organization, living in a Zen monastery. I was director of a yoga ashram. I just dove in completely into how in the world do you be a happy human being and have a great sex life, because that's what I was interested in. And we're going to get into a very important part of that tonight, which is not being limited by the rules, whatever rules you grew up with. The rules I grew up with sucked. I don't know about the rules you grew up with, but we're going to look tonight about how to live outside of those rules.
It's funny you should mention rules. Of course, that's what we're talking about tonight. But Erwan's upbringing and mine were very different. So I had a different set of rules. I grew up in a very stable family of awesome mom and dad, and just they're amazing. They have a great relationship, all of that. And I started to study psychology when I was in college, and then was getting my master's degree in psychology, was planning to be a therapist. And I kind of was starting to have this sense there was a ceiling of things are pretty good, but am I totally sexually liberated? Not necessarily. Is this mind-blowing, extraordinary? Not necessarily. And when I met Erwan, his kind of wildness and intensity and devotion to learning about what women want and sex and orgasm and all this stuff, I was drawn to him like a magnet. I wanted that. My rules and conditioning were about keep it pretty good and keep it stable. I wanted a little bit of a party. So that's a little bit about me, and a couple more things about us. We've become the go-to place, not just in the Bay Area now, but broadening beyond the Bay Area, since we're all online, the go-to place for all things romantic and sexual. And we really love working personally with you guys. It's not a bunch of information and kind of general stuff, but we like to really handhold you through the process of having the kind of relationship life that you want. So that's what we're about. I'm really excited to be with you. One more thing I want to say before we dive in is it for you guys, Mastery of Relationship. We have a new woman in the class tonight. Luba is joining. Hello, Luba. Happy to have you.
I want to see Luba.
I know.
Well, we got a lot of people here.
There's a lot of people.
Luba, would just you wave so
Luba,
I can see you where you are?
Oh, there she is. Look right here. Look right
here.
Yay!
Yay! Great. And Yehuda, fantastic.
Yeah.
Great.
That's
great,
a rush.
Great.
Have like 100 people's attention on you, isn't it? Yeah. So great to have you.
All right. So a big part of being happy is living outside of whatever rules or conditioning we grew up in. So one way I like to say this to really make the point is that the benefit of being bad, right, bad in quotes, is living outside the box, right? Living outside the box. Now, what is that box? That box is whatever psychological conditioning you grew up with. I'm not saying it was bad. Maybe it was really good, right? Now, here's a box, right? This box has 9 dots. Those of you in Master of Relationship will be familiar with this because we covered this at the beginning of this Bad Boys and Girls series, right? So for those of you who are not in Master of Relationship, just take a look at how in the world could I connect all 9 of these dots with only 1, 2, 3, 4 connected lines, right? 4 lines that are actually connected. So you might even want to take a pen and paper, and if you're in Master of Relationship, you might want to see if you can remember this, right? It's an important point. Draw those 9 dots, and then connect them with 4 lines, right? 4 straight lines that are connected, okay? Now, I'm going to sort of cut to the punchline with this. It can only be done if you go outside the box. Okay, and that's very much the theme of tonight, right? Going outside the box. If I stayed within my conditioning, my life was over. It would have been really terrible. And I have an amazing life, an amazing family, an amazing son. Obviously, like, my wife is, beyond super sexy, right? Like, doing this for a living, supporting you, as far as I'm concerned, I'm supporting God. That's my experience, right? I love my life passionately, right? But if I had lived inside the box that I grew up in, all that conditioning, that never would have happened. And I really love that Alicia had a really healthy, stable childhood. For one thing, I have great in-laws, which is nice. But the other reason is because, even that box, even that good box, was still a box, right? And Alicia demonstrated, in some senses, even more courage than I did, just to get out of a good box, right? Getting out of a bad box, that's kind of obvious, right? But, she got out of a good box. So whether you have a good box or a bad box, there are benefits to getting outside of the box. Now, getting outside of the box can feel like we're doing something wrong. It can feel like we're being bad. Right? So that's one of the reasons why I say the benefit of being bad is living outside the box. Because our inner critic, our inner judge, our superego, the part of us that's kind of managing us and judging us. Have you ever noticed that you have a judge on your shoulder evaluating almost everything that you do? Okay, that's okay, that's not okay, okay, eating that's okay, oh, don't eat that, or, it's like judging, like that. Have you ever noticed that? Right? So living outside the box really means not living under the control of that judge. So that's why we call it being bad. Bad boys and girls aren't really bad. You think of James Dean. Is James Dean really bad? I don't think so. Is Miles Davis really bad?
Is Madonna bad?
Is Madonna
Hell
bad?
no.
right? Who's she's an icon. She's an American icon. She has the picture with her dress is kind of blown. Marilyn Monroe, right?
Yeah.
You know, is Marilyn Monroe bad? No, she's just sexy, right? So bad boys and girls aren't really bad. They're people who think and act and even sex outside the box. Now that's a good thing, to sex, S-E-X, sex outside the box, because the box of what's permitted sexually is very small. You might have noticed, right? In many traditions, even having sex is bad, right? So maybe one of the benefits of being bad is you get to have sex, right? So bad boys and girls aren't really bad. They're people who think, act, and even sex outside of the box, whatever your particular box is. The inner critic is that voice in our head that tells us what we should do and what we shouldn't do. You know, that really puts a damper on sex. It kind of eliminates spontaneity and being natural and doing what you want to do. So, for sex, well, let me say it this way. Being outside of the box is like being original, being creative, not taking the conditioning, the automaticity, the programming, and just living it out like a robot. It's actually being original. You know, it makes me think of great musicians like Miles Davis, right? Miles Davis, arguably the most innovative musician, jazz musician, where he started and where he ended up after his 50-year career. I mean, the span is huge, but you can think for yourself about who's somebody who you know to be original, a musician or an artist like Picasso or a writer, right? But it could be in any field. Maybe it's in computer technology or medicine. Somebody who's been really original and really thought and acted outside of the box. For sex, being original or outside of the box means letting your body do what it wants to do. Letting your body do what it wants to do. Now, if you let your body do what it wants to do, when you're with somebody that you're attracted to, right? You know, you're attracted to a woman, you're attracted to a man, you're straight, you're gay, you're left, you're right, you're up, you're down, whatever, but you let your body do what it wants to do when you're with somebody that you're attracted to. Whoa, that is really, you know, something's going to start to get moving.
Mm-hmm. Notice what comes up for you even with us talking about this. Letting your body do what it wants to do. What comes up for you?
And this is why bad boys and girls have better sex than most folks, is because it's not vanilla, it's not average. They're not inside of some constraint. They're actually doing what they want to do. They're actually letting their bodies do what their bodies want to do. Now, one of the specialties of Alicia and I is extended orgasm, right? This is not a class about extended orgasm. If you're in Master of Relationship, you know, you regularly we're covering that and like that. But I am going to say a little bit about that, which is being in a state of ongoing pleasure sexually, much less extended orgasm, where your body is literally in a state of release, where your body is involuntarily contracting. Your genitals are spasming, if you will, or involuntarily contracting, moving on their own. There's all that sensitivity and activation and energy, prana, if you will, to go back to yoga, right? But there's also release and letting go and relaxation, and the body's just kind of moving, right? so that can be taken all the way to extended orgasm, to be in that state of body and mind requires no judge, no judgment, no inner critic. You can't kind of evaluate yourself and be spontaneous at the same time. So the inner critic really does put a damper on sex. It stops you from being in that state of release, which is very fun and relaxed and natural and can go all the way to a state of full body and extended orgasm. Now, as far as we're concerned, that kind of wild abandon, right? That kind of freedom in your sex and love life, as far as we're concerned, that's your birthright. It's part of your potential. Alicia mentioned earlier, unleashing your sexual potential, your romantic potential. That's really part of your potential. But it does take hitting pause on that inner critic. So I invite you right now, just hit pause. Just take your hand. It's goofy. I'm from New York. If I can do goofy stuff, you can do it. Just take your hand and just hit pause on that inner critic. Whether you're pausing the inner critic, judging us, or judging yourself, or judging your parents, or judging even the craziness and the politics. Just hit pause on the judgment just for a minute and just see what that's like to have no judgment. And what would that be like in sex, right? Like you're with somebody that you're attracted to and there's no judgment. There's just freedom and spontaneity. Now, I want to say a little bit about skill, right? Because that could look like, wild abandon could look to you like chaos. So there is a place for skill. Right? I was talking about Miles Davis earlier. Miles Davis went to Juilliard School of Music in New York City. Miles Davis practiced his scales. Miles Davis, I don't know, maybe there are musicians who studied more and were more skilled, but I don't know any that were more skilled and studied, and that allowed him to improvise or be spontaneous, or what we're calling wild abandon, in music, in jazz. He was a brilliant improviser. In fact, jazz is very much about improvisation, but that didn't mean that he didn't have skills. So back to sex, we strongly, while tonight is about wild abandon and living outside the dots, that doesn't mean don't study. For example, a man pleasuring a woman, where is her clitoris? What is the most sensitive part of her clitoris? Oh, there's a corona. Just like, I'm going to speak graphically, just like a cock has a corona or a head, so does a clitoris. It has a head, and there's a really sensitive parts, and there's all kinds of stuff going on there. And typically she likes lighter pressure than this really mashing heavy pressure that, as guys we're often doing and that kind of stuff. There's all kinds of skills.
You can see why I grabbed on and never let go. He knew this when we met.
So, tonight's not about the dexterity of sex. That's another class, all right? Tonight is about living outside the dots, that wild abandon, but it doesn't exclude that dexterity. So there's a couple of ways that this wild abandon, this free-for-all, living outside of your conditioning, going for it, can really go wrong sexually. So I want to cover those so we're not being irresponsible about this. One of the ways that it can go wrong is being a bad boy or a bad girl can be, people can be twisted, right? Or be mean. It can turn into some kind of, being hostile or something like that in the name of being free. Right? It's kind of like, I love punk rock, I listen to punk rock, but, it can go a little too far where, somebody ends up in a hospital and there's no consciousness and there's no love, and like, that's not really punk rock. That's really stupid, right? So one of the ways that being a bad boy or girl sexually can go wrong is it can go into being twisted or being mean or being hostile, right? Now, the other way that it can go wrong is that, okay, we want to be outside the dots, we want this wild abandon and this freedom, and it's kind of mental, it's kind of, I've been counseled to not use this word, so I apologize if it offends you, but, it can be nerdy or mental or geeky, right? It's kind of like, Alicia and I went to a sex party, I think about 12 years ago, and it was fun being at the sex party. But like, people, it was really interesting because they were at the sex party, a lot of them, and they were, it was fun. They were nice people, good people, all the rest of that. But like, they had so much equipment and so much gear and so much, stuff. And it was, it was outside the box, but it wasn't really grounded in that originality, in your body, in what's real, in what's true. It was kind of mental. It was kind of heady. Mm-hmm. It was
kind of a box.
It was kind of a box, right? So there's those two ways that this can go wrong. Either mean and twisted, or it's some kind of like mental, weird, geeky, nerdy, heady kind of thing. As opposed to you're in your feet, your legs, your body, your sex, your hips, right? And you're really being spontaneous from there. You're not concerned about being good. You're not under the control of your inner critic. So I'll say a little bit about men, and then I'd like you to say a little bit about women.
Yes.
The box that men tend to live in is, the conditioning is, we're sort of conditioned. God, this is embarrassing to say. We're sort of conditioned. Ladies, I hope that you feel for me as I say this. We're sort of conditioned to be stupid. We're sort of conditioned to be ignorant. Men are sort of conditioned because so many of the rules in culture and society are like, if you're man number one, woman number two, if you're born in a blue blanket, you're it. And if you're born in a pink blanket, not, kind of not so right. And there's something about being a first-class citizen that kind of, makes you stupid. I hate to say it that way. I'm not, I'm an empowered guy. I'm kind of outside the box. I like tearing it up, But there's something about male conditioning that's like, ha ha ha, I'm it and I'm right. And, I don't need to pay attention and I don't need skill. A good example of that is that most guys think that I'm going to curse. I'm from New York. I curse sometimes. Most guys think that they are just fucking great at sex. They just think like, oh yeah, I've gotten great reports. I'm really great at sex, right? So that's one of the ways, that's one of the boxes. Now, it may not be the case for you, right? So for the guys tonight, I'm not saying that's the case for you. Ladies, maybe that's the case for you, right? But on average, what we found in our combined 45 years of teaching, right, my 25 and Alicia's 20, is that guys are often kind of conditioned to think they know and not pay attention and kind of be ignorant, versus actually paying attention and actually being what we call a hipped up guy. Mm-hmm. A guy who's hipped up, like he knows his way around a clitoris. He knows that there's a corona. He knows where the nerve endings of the clitoris go. He knows what a orgasm is and a state of extended orgasm in a woman's body. He can really feel if she's just acting or she's really feeling.
Or a guy that's willing to learn, a guy that knows, I don't know everything about this and I'm willing to learn. That's like on the way to being hipped up. Now, we have a different kind of conditioning as women. So generally, what I see and I've experienced is we can tend to be kind of shy or reserved, like there's a ravenous sexual self that we have, and then there's like a no sex, gotta be appropriate kind of self, and there's often a split between the two. So what that leads to is being reserved about certain things, reserved about asking for what we want in bed or trying that like new sexy position that I've never tried before, or maybe it's like being so open and vulnerable and not controlling everything, but we're shy about that, so we just take the lead. There's all these ways that we can be kind of shy and reserved versus being sexually liberated. And it's a nice combination with a hipped up guy can support a woman in being sexually liberated and vice versa. I have a particular story I want to tell you, and it's about blowjobs. Okay, so the guy that I was in relationship with before I met Erwan, this is forever ago, over 20 years ago, this guy David, he was great. We had great sex. It was fun and everything. And I had never, ever given a blowjob. I just never experienced that. And I started to get kind of curious about it. So I said to him one day, I was like, so what do you think about blowjobs? I was like shy and awkward. And then he, I think, was well-meaning, but was like, I don't know. What do you think? And I was like, I don't know. And then it sort of just like change the subject. And it never happened. Okay, it never happened because I was too shy. He wasn't quite tuned in enough to know like, oh, she's interested. Let me move this along a little bit. It was a missed opportunity. So, okay, that's what it was. Now, contrast that with Erwan here, okay? So we were dating, we were a few weeks or months or something into dating and hanging out and having amazing sex, and I was discovering extended orgasm and everything was great. And then that thing from the back of my mind started to come in, and one day we were hanging out in his bedroom, and he used to live in the inner Sunset district of San Francisco where it's like always foggy. But that day it was not foggy. There was like sun coming in the picture window, and he was sitting in the windowsill, and I'm laying on the bed, and we'd been making out and stuff. And I was like, so what do you think about blowjobs? And then he was so tuned in, and he was like, I think they're great. That's great. Yeah. You could just feel this, of course, you think, right? And then I was like, okay, cool. And then she's like, have you ever done it? And I was like, no, I don't think I'm very good at them. And he was like, okay, cool. Do you want to try it? And I was like, okay. And so long story short, I tried it and I liked it and I haven't stopped since. He has to be like, okay.
The only person having more fun when we're having oral sex than me is her.
So my point is that Erwan being tuned in to, oh, she's expressing a desire, she's a little shy about it, let me help this along in a gentlemanly way. I was sexually liberated, and that's a good thing. So first of all, as we're talking, how does this go for you? What kind of conditioning do you find puts a damper on your desires in sex? So just contemplate that if we're going to continue.
And we gave you some average of what men are average conditioned with, what women are average conditioned with. It might be very different for you. And we all have masculine and feminine parts. You might be conditioned with both of those. You're definitely conditioned with other stuff. So the important part is look for yourself. What's the box that you've been living in? That being outside of that box sexually would be a lot of fun for you.
Mm-hmm, exactly. I mean, as we said before, the inner critic can really put a damper on things. I mean, I had a box of like, I must be a independent feminist woman or something, which of course in essence that's great, but then I had this box, I had to be a particular way, right? So that's floating around in my awareness. And then Erwan and I are making out, and then he was just so amazing at directing and being in charge and telling me what to do in sex, which I really liked. But at first I had a conflict. I remember this one day and we're making out and he's like, he's like, feel this stroke on your clit. Say yes when you feel it. And I'm like, yes. Okay. He's like, tell me again. Yes, yes. And I'm just getting more and more turned on. He's like, okay, flip over and like get on your hands and knees. And it was amazing. And I felt my inner critic being like, this is so unfeminist of you. How are you being told what to do? And all this jibber jabber. But luckily, the sex felt so good, I was able to just kick that voice out and really dive into what I was enjoying. But it really was there. That was an inner critic message. And I remember in the pleasure course a couple of years ago, there was a woman, and we were sharing something about, women tend to enjoy being at the effect and like receiving pleasure and being told what to do in a gentlemanly way, or sometimes not a gentlemanly way, and all this. And she raised her hand, I'll call her Roxy, and she was like, I want that. I want that. Does that make me a bad feminist though? I was like, girl, just relax, go for what you want in pleasure. That's, whatever you want to call it, the best thing that you could do. Sometimes women can have concerns about, it's not okay to just receive pleasure without obligation to reciprocate. I had that too. And when I got to start to experience extended orgasm with Erwan, which is very much about, one person, often the woman, laying down and the man sitting up by her side, or the stroker could be two women. We're going to show you a picture of the position, actually. Let's put that on. See this? Look at the big smile. I'm enjoying receiving. And then there was that little voice like, oh, but you're obligated. You have to do something for him afterwards. And through this practice, I really learned. There was a moment where I remember looking up at Erwan and like he's so focused on my genitals and stroking my clitoris. And he had the hugest smile on his face. And I'm like, okay, he's obviously enjoying this. Inner critic voice, get out of here. I'm just going to receive. But that's something else that we tend to deal with. So there's a lot of messages, inner critic messages that can put a damper on things.